Welcome to Storytime with Chris. I'm Chris, and I am back. I had the craziest week last week, and so I missed an episode, so I apologize for that. Today I'm going to be doing a brief summary on what happened with the 49ers game against the Denver Broncos, and then I'll be previewing the upcoming preseason game against the Las Vegas Raiders. So, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode because, like I said, last week was just crazy. This week has been crazy, and it just seems like it's going to stay crazy for the foreseeable future. So, last week, just a couple things. Sunday night, so not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before, our AC started acting up and actually went out. So Monday, the AC was out all day, and it was really hot and miserable, and I actually started feeling sick, but we lost our AC, and the inside of our house somehow got up to my wife said 98 degrees. The hottest I saw was 91, so who knows how hot it got in this house, but it was too hot for our 1-year-old daughter, so we ended up taking over our in-laws' basement, my in-laws' basement and my wife's parents, for a few days while we got the AC fixed. And during that time, I ended up having this really bad cold, which you might still hear in my voice a little bit. I'm completely over it, but yeah, still feeling the effects of that a little bit. I got a little bit of a sore throat, sinus stuff, so I apologize in advance if you hear that in my voice, but yeah, that happened. And then I had a kickball tournament Friday, Saturday. This week, just been busy. We had a company party on Wednesday. I had an unexpectedly long visit to a location for my job on Tuesday. And our daughter has this week refused to take naps. She's been going through this really clingy phase and just is refusing to nap unless someone is holding her. So normally I record during her nap times, and I haven't been able to do that. So here we are. This episode is being recorded and hopefully released in one day. So let's not waste any more time and jump right into the Denver Broncos game. So the Niners lost to Denver 30-9. And here are some of my key, like I said, this is going to be just a very brief summary. I'm not going to go over the whole game. That's over with. So yeah, here's my brief summary starting now. 49ers lost to Denver 30-9. It was very obvious that Denver has a lot better depth than the 49ers, although the 49ers second team hung in there with the Denver first team for the first quarter or so. They even forced a Bo Nix safety, partially because the defense ran stuff that was not vanilla. Robert Saleh already making a difference in the first preseason game. I sent a picture to my dad and brother of a front that the defense showed where there were 10 defenders on the line of scrimmage except one. And they were disguising exactly what they were doing. And we haven't seen that in a long time on this 49ers defense. So yeah, already Saleh's making a difference in the preseason, and I'm excited to see what else he does going forward, because that really has been missing the last 2 seasons with the 49ers. Last year, they just never ran anything creative. I've mentioned this before, but the most creative they ever got was lining two linebackers up in the A-gaps, and occasionally Fred Warner would blitz. So, hey, I'm happy to see that. Mac Jones appears to be a solid backup. He played pretty well. He had an interception that was really more on the wide receiver, but if the 49ers go down to their quarterback 3, the season is absolutely over. Both Carter, Bradley, and Tanner Mordecai. I mean, Bradley just looked awful. Sorry, but that was not good at all. And then Mordecai I don't think he was quite as bad as Bradley, but he did make a couple of boneheaded mistakes, including a pick after making a Brock Purdy scramble and buying some time. So Corey Kiner, I think, got most of the carries for the Niners, and he looked pretty decent. Again, going up against a bunch of backups, but this 49ers team is dealing with a lot of running back injuries right now and a lot of injuries in general, which we will get to. So, he looked decent. I would love for Jordan James to get back soon. Hopefully he does. And we can see him a little bit in the preseason. But Kiner has a good shot of making this roster if they keep dealing with all these injuries. So Jordan Watkins had a flashy 50-yard deep pass from Mac Jones. And while that play was exciting, he did get injured, and he'll be out about a month, according to Shanahan. It's too bad. I would have loved to have seen him more with Purdy and Jones in the preseason, because he really didn't do much after that catch. That could be partially because of the quarterbacks he was playing with, but he had that deep pass. I don't know. I don't want to get too excited. I do not want to get Danny Grade. And then a note on the Denver Broncos. It's funny. I saw a coworker at the company party I mentioned earlier. She's a big Denver Broncos fan, and she was, talking about the game. And I was like, "Oh, this is your Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah." Just, talking some smack. But in all seriousness, I do think the Broncos there's a reason why they've been in the Super Bowl conversation this offseason. They look, their offense can make some improvements. They didn't look great in this first game, but it is preseason, so, got to take it with a grain of salt. But their depth, the depth they have on this team is really, really solid. I mean, Jarrett Stidham looked great, and they have some good running backs and receivers. They have the old 49ers receiver. What's his name? He went to Minnesota, I think, last season or the year before. I cannot think of his name right now. Let me look it up. Trent Sherfield. Trent Sherfield was one of those guys that got quite a bit of playing time in that game. And when you have him as a fourth or fifth option, that's you've got a pretty solid receiver room, honestly. So Denver, just based on the amount of depth that they have and quality depth, that is much needed in a Super Bowl run, because injuries are going to happen every year. You have to have guys that can step up. And so Denver is definitely a team to watch. Although it was a preseason game, that is one of the takeaways I had from it. Okay, jumping into the 49ers preseason game against the Las Vegas Raiders. This week they held joint practices together, and the biggest news for the 49ers, which at this point shouldn't be a surprise, are the injuries. Now, there are a ton of injuries. I'm not going to go through them all. You can go look that up yourself, but I'm going to talk about the most notable ones in my opinion. Starting off with Nick Bosa, obviously a former Defensive Player of the Year and one of the keystone players on the 49ers defense. This is huge. I mean, he's, one of the top guys. And although he's been dealing with neck soreness, he has missed quite a few practices already. Knowing the way the 49ers handle injuries, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that the injury is more serious than they're letting on. So something to keep an eye on. Obviously, that's the most notable injury because of the star power that he brings to the defense. Jordan Watkins was the rookie receiver who had a good game against Denver. He will be out for a while after suffering a high ankle sprain. And then these guys are all clumped into one. Robert Beal, Kevin Givens, Sam Okwonu, Jordan Elliott, they're all dealing with injuries. And these guys are, just depth pieces. The problem is they're all depth pieces in the same area, which is the defensive line. And that spot is becoming very thin. And the 49ers really can't afford to keep losing guys there. Another defensive lineman, their rookie CJ West, had a pretty bad scare in practice. His knee buckled and he was helped off the field. Those are definitely not all the injuries that the 49ers have had this week or are dealing with, but to me, those are the most notable. So, like I said, look it up yourself. I'm a little bit short on time today, so I can't go through every single injury, unfortunately. But Let's preview this Raiders game. So, offensively, what I want to see against the Vegas Raiders, Shanahan said that the starters, he wants them to play, but he hasn't fully decided. At least that was as of yesterday. I haven't seen any updates about that. I hope we do see them a little bit. I know injuries are a big concern, but it seems like the guys who sit out in the preseason end up getting hurt anyway. So, cough, cough, Trent Williams and CMC. I don't know. I feel like preseason is a great way to get the body warmed up for playing a full season. Of course, I'm not saying these guys should come out and play the whole game or even half a game, a quarter, a couple of drives, just get the blood flowing, get some hits in you, kind of get a little slightly calloused before the regular season starts. But that's just my opinion. And while I do want to see the starters for a bit, I don't want to see them out there the whole game, like I just said. I'd prefer to see the second team and the young guys on offense. I want to see Mac Jones play most of the game so that the receivers have a chance on offense. With Bradley and Mordecai, receivers just we couldn't assess the receivers because those guys were just not good. So I think Jones, he's been a starter in the league. He's been a Pro Bowler. Oh, that's wild to me. Sorry, that made me laugh a little bit. Mac Jones has been a Pro Bowler. That is a fact. So he does give the young receivers a better chance than those other two guys on the roster. The first guy that I'm looking for in this game is Tariq Owens. He's the son of Terrell Owens. And we haven't seen him much in game action. I would love to see what he does if he gets an opportunity. Connor Colby is another guy. With Ben Barch being questionable, the door is wide open for the left guard spot. Colby looked solid against Denver, and he has apparently stood out in the joint practices against Vegas. So it would be awesome to see him get some playing time and make the most of his opportunity. That left guard position is obviously going to be pretty key this season, with it being an open competition. And then Spencer Burford, if he puts up another showing like last week, it might be time to let him go. I mean, have never been impressed by him. Obviously, there was that play in the Super Bowl where, he lets Chris Jones just run freely at Brock Purdy, but, whatever. Those are the guys I'm watching for in this game. Defensively, I just want to see what kind of depth there is. The defense did not look great against Denver, so maybe having another week down will help them improve. Some guys that I want to watch, Kalia Davis. He's a guy that's had injury troubles. He had a good game against Denver. He could potentially see a lot of playing time this year with the number of injuries at the defensive line. So I want to see him, see what he can do. Nick Martin, the rookie linebacker, he had a tough outing against Denver. I'm looking to see if he can make some improvements this week. He did fly around quite a bit, but he did not get guys on the ground. So, maybe just getting back into the flow of football. I know he hasn't played in a while, so that could play a role in that. So that's what I want to see from him. Chase Lucas, he had 2 blitzes last week and forced a safety on Bo Nix. He looked excited to be out there. He looked like he loved football, and he could potentially be a solid depth cornerback. Speaking of depth cornerbacks, Darrell Luter had a rough game last week. He had a blown coverage that led to a wide open tight end touchdown. He might be on his way out if he has another bad game, because they have some solid corners or some guys that are starting to flash. One of those guys is Jacob Robinson. He's a BYU guy. I've seen him play. He's, a little bit smaller, but he's always been a good cornerback. And I would love to see him get more opportunities this week. And then the last guy, Marquise Siegel. He left with an injury last week, but he was looking awesome at the safety position. It's another spot that they're battling for. And with that position up for grabs, I hope he can return this week. I didn't see him listed on the injury list that I saw, but ESPN has him as questionable, so I guess we'll see. And finally, on special teams, I hope we can see more of the return game this week. Junior Bergen was drafted to be a return man, and he looked decent in the one look that he had against Denver. And while I hope he can be more than just a return man, because this roster's already thin, the receiver room is already pretty thin, as is, it would be nice to see the 49ers actually do something on special teams this season. It seems like they've really focused on revamping that area, and Bergen could be a part of that process. So that's really all I'm going to say about this preseason game against Las Vegas. You know, it's tough to know what this 49ers team is really going to be this season, honestly. With the number of injuries they've had. Oh, actually, Shanahan kind of set it up this year. He said, while it's not really a rebuild like it was in 2017 when he first joined the team, he knows that they're kind of in a process where they have some good players and then a lot of young guys, and he hopes the team can sneak into the playoffs. That is just setting the bar really low. I think Shanahan understands that this roster is not very good, and he's setting expectations very low. It's not a big vote of confidence from Kyle. I don't know. It is pretty obvious that the front office doesn't want to spend a lot of money this season. They've been bringing in a bunch of just cheap options, probably because they keep giving out all these big contracts that don't end up working out. So, yeah, very interesting to hear Kyle say that. Just trying to keep fans' expectations pretty low, I think. And I don't blame him. I don't know what to make of this team this season at this point. So, hopefully they can find a way to sneak into the playoffs. I mean, Seattle, maybe defensively they've improved, but overall, not too worried about Seattle offensively. Arizona, not too concerned with Arizona, honestly. Los Angeles, this is where things get interesting because Matthew Stafford has been dealing with this back issue. It sounds like he has a herniated disc. He had to have epidural, which I've personally dealt with before as well. It's funny, I joke with my wife that, she was in labor, she got an epidural, and I have also had an epidural, so I know exactly what she was going through. No, seriously. Those back problems, disc herniations are not fun. And it took me a while to recover. Now I'm not a professional athlete. I also stopped going to my physical therapy, so, Matthew Stafford's not going to do that. But in the NFL, you're taking a lot of big hits. That could easily be re-aggravated. And it can get re-aggravated on its own as well. So that means Jimmy G would be the Rams quarterback. And while I think he would do well in that offense, it's very similar to the Kyle Shanahan offense. Not exactly the same, but he also has some great weapons with Nakua and Devontae Adams. I think, they could be still pretty solid. But with that being said, in the head-to-head matchups, if Jimmy G is a starter against the 49ers, I think Shanahan and Saleh are going to know what his weaknesses are, and they're going to be able to find a way to exploit those things. Some disguised looks where some guy's crossing over the middle, which Jimmy G, that's where he loves to throw the ball. I don't know. If the Niners can, if Jimmy G's the starter against San Francisco, I think they can take advantage of that defensively, and having 2 wins potentially on Los Angeles would be huge towards winning the division. You want to win at least 4 games in the division, and that would put them halfway there. So just saying that is something to watch. This is the Stafford back injury situation. That's probably going to give the 49ers their best chance because to me, the quarterback ranking in the NFC West goes Stafford, Purdy, Murray, Darnold, Jimmy G. So, yeah, yeah, without Stafford, I mean Stafford is just such an underrated quarterback. I've always liked Stafford. For a long time, he was my go-to in fantasy. But yeah, that's something to watch. Anyway, that's I think that's everything I have today. Like I said, a little bit of a shorter episode. I couldn't quite cover everything I wanted to this week because it's been just crazy busy, hectic, and of course my daughter decided not to stop taking naps all of a sudden, so that does not help. And yeah, that's going to do it. So thank you again for listening. If you haven't yet, please go subscribe, like this video, follow me if you're on Spotify. I'm doing my best to provide weekly 49ers updates, and the regular season is coming up pretty soon. It's coming up quick. This is going to be, we'll have to see what the season brings. Anyway, thanks again. This has been Sports Time with Chris.